Hey guys, meteorologist Nick Lilia here in our Severe Weather Predictions Center, just kind of hanging out and taking a look at what we're looking at for Thursday and Friday. And right now, I'll take you through what we're looking at Thursday and Friday. We've got the old weather map sitting in front of us right now. We're looking at the 300 millibar heights as well as the wind, and we'll get the cursor going here if I can. And I'd like to highlight a couple of different places that we're watching for the opportunity for some stronger or severe thunderstorms Thursday and into Friday. So as you take a look at the map here, I'll kind of circle the area of biggest concern. That's our neck of the woods. But I really think that most everything will actually end up being a little further north than that, probably mainly in parts of Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, and northern Mississippi. Now that's just based on a couple of different things that I'll take you through right now. So what we're looking at, 300 millibar heights and winds. And where you see these isobars, there's the little black lines right there, and down here. Where you see those spreading apart is where you see the atmosphere actually spreading apart or lowering in pressure, which means you can force more things up. Or when you've got a cold front moving through, that adds lift. It lets that atmosphere lift up and create some clouds and showers and thunderstorms. We'll go ahead and take it over to the 500 millibar height and relative vorticity. And looks like we've got a little wave right there, which means we've got lifting out ahead of it in this area here. Also apologize for the green lines, probably tough to see on this map, but we're basically looking at the same place where we've got that spreading aloft at 300 millibars. We've also got it at 500 millibars, and let's go back down to about 700 millibars, or about 15,000 feet or so up there. And we're looking at vertical velocity, which is basically how fast things are going to move up. And notice across Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, and northern parts of Mississippi, really not much happening, is there? By the way, what we're looking at here is the NAM at 54 hours out. This is just one weather model. This isn't an ensemble of all of them. Basically looking 54 hours out, or Thursday afternoon and evening or so. Now let's take a look at our Cape. Now this is a measure of instability, and notice that we will be relatively unstable in that same area, which means that we'll have plenty of warm air sitting underneath some cooler air moving over the top of it, so we'll have the opportunity to see Cape values up around 2,000 to 2,500 or so, so says the NAM, especially across some of our western counties. And again, since we're not necessarily concerned yet about the Pine Belt, mainly off to the north, measure of instability about 2,000 to 2,500 alone isn't something that we're necessarily concerned about. Lifted index sitting at about -2 to a -7, and it's kind of counterintuitive when we're talking about lifted index. So we are talking about the bigger or the smaller numbers, or the larger negative numbers as, I guess, quote-unquote worse, or you've got a better opportunity to lift that parcel of air. So once you get down around -4 to -7 to -10, you're talking about a fair amount of instability. And again, that's basically in the same place that we were watching this whole time. And we'll take it over to bulk shear from the surface all the way up to about 500 millibars or so. Shear just a change in wind speed with height. And there's also a change in wind direction, which we can take a look at as well. But notice the change in wind speed as you move up. Once you get above about 20 to 30 knots or so, that's enough to start getting things moving. Once you get back into parts of Oklahoma, 40 or 50, you can really start to peel parts of the atmosphere away. But don't worry, what you need to worry about with this little breakdown is that we're above about 20 or 30, which will help to get things going. And now we're going to look at surface relative helicity. This is between 0 and 3,000 meters or so. And as we look Thursday afternoon, usually around the Pine Belt, you want something in between about 100 to 200 to 300 or so when you're talking about your historically severe thunderstorms. And what we're looking at, according to this one model, Thursday afternoon is anywhere between 50 and about 150 or so. So that's not really boding very well for these severe weather chances. Then the EHI, which is just a mixture of Cape and shear, so a measure of instability and how much the winds are changing with height. And really what you're looking for here is up over 1.5 to 3. and we're down here looking at about 1 or so. So again, right now in this area that we're watching, really kind of wishy-washy, and that's the way it should be, seeing as how we're hanging out in September and early October rather than in November. Now we'll take it over to composite reflectivity, and this is basically this same weather model's forecast for what the radar might look like. And here's Thursday afternoon, nothing more than a couple of popcorn showers around the Pine Belt. Most of the action still hanging out in parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas, in fact not even into parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, or the section of Missouri that I was necessarily concerned about. Now, that changes as we move 66 hours out, or as we're looking for, this says down here, valid at 12Z on 10/3, so that would be Friday morning at about 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Notice all the rain moves in across the Pine Belt, but it's not much to that, is there? You don't see many yellows, there's certainly no oranges like you see well off to the north, and that could be indicative of a, less volatile system. So let's take a look at what happens. Well, the Cape has dropped significantly. How about Cape values in the morning hanging out around 500 to 1,000? Didn't seem terribly bad. EHI values down around or below 1. Doesn't seem that bad either. Lifted indexes even down below about a negative, or above, I should say, about a -5 or so. And as we take a look at surface relative helicity between 0 and 3,000 meters, and again, this is what we're watching, up over 150 to 300 to 450, and hey, we're sitting at anywhere between about 100 and 300 or so, so relatively in the ballpark that we're looking at. And when you take a look at temperatures as you move up, I wanted to point this out. One thing, as the stronger storms get here, or at least what we're thinking right now could be stronger storms, the one thing that helps us figure out how severe, if severe, is one of the parameters that I like looking at, is what the temperature is going to be at about 700 millibars or so. And this shows that you'll be above 0 degrees Celsius, which tells me that at 700 millibars, you're not going to see a whole lot of hail, which also tells me that hail won't be necessarily as much of a concern, because down here at the surface will also be a little warmer in the morning, somewhere probably around 70 or so. This is what we're watching over the next couple of days for Thursday and into Friday. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably going, Nick, so what do you take away from all of this? Well, to me, we're still looking at the opportunity for perhaps a strong storm or two. We'll take it back to the reflectivity here. Probably a strong storm or two, perhaps even a line of stronger storms. But I think the threat for severe weather, given this particular model, doesn't seem necessarily all that high. The threat for wind and hail, probably there. The threat for tornadoes, given the amount of low-level torque, is there, but is also incredibly low at this point, so it's something we're not necessarily concerned about quite yet either. And hey, thanks so much for checking this out. It's a little severe weather breakdown.